Hello, everybody. My name is Joshua Sear. I'm the interim director here at the Entrepreneurship Center. And my team is here as well. There's Nicole off to the side. Thank you for organizing everything. There's DJ. He's swiping all your swipes. And we're super happy to have you all here. I know we're competing with some glorious weather outside. I'm glad you chose to hang out with us and enjoy some of the delicious food that we have today. Really excited to have our panel discussion. Today, we're going to be speaking with and hearing from 3 alumni from UNH that have had really interesting career paths to something involving food, right, or beverage, hence the name of our talk, which was Taste of Entrepreneurship. And so to get started, I thought maybe we could just hear from each of our guests here about who they are, what they study while they were here at UNH, and what their business is.
Sure. So I'll start. I'm Galen Hand, class of 2016. I was in Paul College. Believe it or not, I was not involved in the food and beverage scene at all, other than being a consumer prior to starting my business. But I actually was a finance major. I went out to work in Chicago in investment banking for a couple of years. I don't know if you guys know what investment banking is, but it's where they work you 80 hours a week until you cry, and then they basically send you off. So I did that, and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore, so I quit. I moved back to New Hampshire with the dream of starting a business, and I didn't have an idea. I didn't have a product or anything. My knowledge was P&Ls and balance sheets. And so what I did notice was that I saw a gap in the market. So like the analogy I always use, and my company is Noka Beverages. I don't know if you guys have heard about it, but it's an alcoholic product. It's essentially the business spawned from just a complete lack of options in a category. So like the analogy I use is like if you walk into Market Basket, there's a ton of products in the non-carbonated, non-alcoholic space. So think like Powerade, Vitamin Water, Gatorade, Propel, H2, Fruit 2.0, Hint, Liquid Death. I mean, a billion of them. And then there's a handful of seltzers. And then you walk to the alcohol category and it's just 85 identical hard seltzers. So what we did was we were like, let's create non-carbonated products for people who like non-carbonated products, but don't want to drink TV static out of a can when they're drinking alcohol. So we came up with NOCO, which stands for no carbonation. We launched in 2019. I'm actually really happy to say that a lot of our advisors and investors are actually UNH alum. So our second largest shareholder has his name on the side of the business school. He's been a huge advocate of ours since we started the business. And I'm very proud of all that engagement. I'm more than happy to answer any and all questions as I'm sure these two are, but I'm really excited to tell you about my beverage journey.
Great.
And no, I didn't bring any. I wanted to, but like, I don't know. I don't know.
Advertise that.
Yeah. This has been full. Send it to the fraternities and sororities.
All right. Thanks, Galen. And Penny.
I'm Penny Brewster. I own Series Bakery in Portsmouth. I started it, in 1980, which is a long time ago. I went to UNH and I studied art. A really worthwhile way to make $1 million. But I really loved it, and it was way back in the day of the 70s, so that was the sort of thing you could do and still do it for fun. But you're talking about your 80-hour week. I think that you could do that in the food business too, don't you think? So anyways, I've been doing my bakery since 80. So we started out doing a lot of breads and goodies for the restaurants in Portsmouth. I'm sure you guys probably come into Portsmouth and there's all the bars and all the great places to eat there. But they weren't way back in the 80s. There weren't a lot of places that did their own desserts. They didn't do their own breads. Now, of course, everybody can do it pretty easily. But back in the day, there just weren't those places. So that was sort of my thought, that I would start doing this sweet little something. And it sort of blossomed, and now I do much more in the lunch business. I do a lot of that kind of stuff, and I hardly do any restaurants at all because everybody has their own bakers in-house. But I just love what I do. I mean, I could retire in a heartbeat, but it's so much fun, and working with food, whether it's alcoholic beverages or the Mexican deal. I mean, food is such a cool thing, and everybody needs it. And it's something that you always make people happy with. So that's my deal.
I'm Brett Winterstein. I went to UNH and graduated in 2006. Yeah, that sounds right. I am one of one of the owners of Dos Mexican Eats in Dover, New Hampshire, which is a small takeout or takeout only restaurant in one of the mill buildings downtown. We opened 8 days before the pandemic shut everything down, which was a lot of fun. We had people in the restaurant for one day, and then we closed the doors and just did takeout only. But it was, I think we were one of the few businesses that was kind of a godsend in a weird way. We thrived and pivoted very hard, and were too new at what we were doing to realize like we didn't have any other choice. So yeah, you know, and the reason we do it all is, man, I'm not the best public speaker, I suppose.
It's
yeah.
Ignorance is bliss.
Ignorance is bliss. But yeah, the second penny here is we love to make food, and I love to make food, and food typically is a universal language that makes people happy. And you know, the 80-hour work week is a common thing. It's the thread that runs through the industry that we work in and we love. And I think that's, you know, I was an English major here. I like to read books, and could have done that at the library, but I'm glad I came here. I learned a lot. I had a lot of fun. But ultimately, I got into the business that I did because I just like to work hard, maybe foolishly, but yeah, that's kind of our story. My story with Dos Mexican Eats. You know, we don't really know what we're doing half the time, and that's kind of the fun of it. So
sort of speaking along that thread, it sounds like none of you had any formal or even informal or support systems within UNH or even after to start a business, right? Like that wasn't really part of your background, and yet you did it, right? And can you speak to the decision process and the anxiety, or the, you know, like oftentimes we have imposter syndrome, right? As students, we're not sure, well, they're successful, but I couldn't possibly do that. Can you speak a little bit to taking that plunge, and you know, and why you did it anyway?
I guess I'll start. Yeah, it's interesting because I was actually talking with a young lady today about this who wants to start her own business, and the idea of like creating something is oftentimes you're looking at a mountain, like it's intimidating. But I always say, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So it's like if you take something that's this huge obstacle and break it down into manageable chunks, it really isn't scary. And like, and I did it for her in this conversation where she was looking to start this like agency, and I was like, well, if you do this, this, and this, then you're basically there. And she's like, oh shit, you're right. And it's like, but people, when you look at this obstacle, it's like, oh my God, I got to build the Eiffel Tower. It's like, no, you just got just a little castle. And like, and I think that when you do that, it becomes a lot more manageable and a lot easier to take things on, especially where like, I mean, getting degrees in a specific knowledge base or area is obviously very helpful, but creating a business in that is an entirely different endeavor. So it's like, if somebody wants to create a business or get involved in a business in a specific industry, you're gonna learn most of what you do by doing it, or what you need to know by doing it. So you gotta take that first step, and that's why breaking that big obstacle into small chunks so that you can take that first chunk is what gets most of the work done.
Well, plus I think the major dose of stupidity when you that you do. I mean, just like what you're talking about is you check it down into little bitty pieces. But I mean, I think that to boldly go where, what the hell, why not give it a try, kind of thing is a. I think it's a really good, healthy thing to do, because I think you can just give it a try. It's not going to be the end of the world. If it doesn't go, you pivot, you change things, you move in a different direction. Might not be what you thought you were going to be doing, but sometimes cool stuff happens. I have got zero business sense at all, but I mean, for 43 years, I've managed to keep going, and I still like what I do. And I think you learn as you go. It's much more fun if you do that. If you already know that you're going to make all these steps, and this is, your end goal is here. Sometimes if you open yourself up to other stuff, it broadens your horizon, and you might go in a different direction than you thought you were going to, but it's so cool. The trip there is just, it's really neat, and you learn as you go. It's much more fun that way. And the stupidity.
Yeah, I would hearken down on the stupidity thing. Yeah, you gotta be real dumb sometimes.
Really hold that.
But yeah, no, I think I agree with all those sentiments, and then having the passion for what you want and to pursue. I love to cook, and I love to make people happy through food, and we also like to give people the opportunity who don't have food, feed them as well, and following your passion and believing in yourself. I think that's the reason I jumped off into this branch, and not wanting to necessarily work for somebody else anymore, and just relying on myself and my other partners to get the job done, so to speak, has made it much more fulfilling owning a business and bringing people up with us and teaming up with other businesses in the building that we're in. And just kind of opening the creative juices as far as teamwork and collectivism as a whole, because our restaurant's located in a mill building that has apartments, but it also has 20 or 30 other businesses in it, and a lot of them are food oriented. So we've had to team up and partner up with numerous businesses in that building to, kind of just grow the vibe of community in the building. And that's a big part of what we do, and, just going with the flow, ultimately.
So it sounds like, you're leveraging part of your network, right? You're meeting folks, you're getting to know how you can support each other, and you build that network over time. We've talked about this in previous events. Is there other examples of having your network of folks, your mentors, your coaches, or your peers, that has really kind of guided you on this path, or given you epiphany, or maybe introduced you to a new investor?
Yeah, I'm for the sake of not taking an hour, I'll keep it brief. I'll put it this way, and I hope this is the same for them, but a large portion of our success is purely because of the people in our network. I mean, I'll put it this way. Our first distributor we ever signed was the distributor in New Hampshire that sells for part of the state. The guy who runs it is a UNH alum. His family who owns it is UNH alum. I got the guy who owns Stoneface, who connected me with him, was a UNH alum. Probably half of our investors are UNH people. And I'm not saying that, aside from just those, all the other investors that we've met, we've again, simply in that silo, I've never cold pitched anybody. I've never reached out to an angel and be hey, can I pitch you my business? It's always been a connection of a connection, and it's people in the network. And I'll put it this way: when it comes to, not to be blunt, when it comes to people that matter with business, usually you have to get introduced to them. It's very hard to get in touch with people who make a difference. When you're starting, when you're running a business, certain people will be deal makers. They'll really improve your business in ways. Those people are not easy to get a hold of. So you have to get introduced to them. So you have to network with people and have people put their neck out for you to get in touch with them. I mean, I could list more than it would take to fill the entire schedule. Yeah, but it's I've done these informal office hours at Paul, because I've talked to Kim Clark about this, but networking is something that is not, I think, taught enough, and it's something that the Piper Jaffray, take a step back from entrepreneurial, where I got my first job, they don't hire from schools that they don't recruit from. The only reason I got the job was because I networked. The only reason I got my internship was because I networked. So anything professionally, I think 80% of jobs are not posted. Think about that for a second, because they're purely put out into their internal networks. So I think that networking is the single most important tool that one can have when it comes to either starting businesses or just purely professionally.
I'm going to take this moment to that plug for an event we have next week. Techstars is the largest, if not the second largest, startup accelerator in the world, and they're coming here to talk specifically about the power of networks, and that's a kind of a big deal, and that's a lunchtime event here next week.
So how, when you think that it should be taught more, how are you thinking that would, like, what would that look like?
I think that, again, I'll speak candidly. I hope this doesn't insult people. I think that UNH should bring in people like us who have non-academic real-world experience in networking and have them teach students how to network. I could right now teach everybody in here how to get a job. Like, I say that not
And
bragging.
I'd like to hire you, so.
I say that not bragging. I say that because I've gone through what it takes to. I've literally helped friends get jobs through network. I'm like, this is what you need to say. This is how you say it. This is who you reach out to, because this is what it always comes down to is, like, let me guess, how many people, when you're either writing a LinkedIn or writing an email, say, I don't know what to say. Like, my guess is probably, like, you don't know what to say. You don't know how to approach it. You don't know, should I say this? Should I address it like this? Should I exit the... And there's so many factors that people get worked up about that if, like, I literally like wrote out an email for a friend. I'm like, send this and you'll be good. And they got the job. And so, not to go off on a tangent, but, like, I think that, like, having people like myself who have networked and then have also, like, had people network with me, showing them what works and what doesn't is a huge advocate. One, I'll plug a network pointer that I always give people: push the line. When you are talking to people, I always hear from students, they're like, I don't know if I should say this. I don't know if I should ask for this. You're not going to get for something unless you ask for it. So ask for it. If you want to get connected with HR at a company to get a job, ask for it. You need to push the line, because the worst thing somebody says is no. And, like, every single bit of success I had professionally getting my first job was because I pushed the line.
So the good news about that is people like to help, right? If you ask for help, people actually like to help. And I know that's true at Series Bakery, right? And I know, Brett, you were just mentioning it, with food, people that don't necessarily have food. And, like, there's a lot of pathways that we seek out to help others. So, Penny, you've got a long career and an amazing history in Portsmouth. I almost think you're a network maker. Like, for those of you that may not have been to Series Bakery, and I really recommend it, it's been a fixture of Portsmouth, and Portsmouth has transformed so much over the many decades, and it's been our space of stability, right? And I've gone there. I used to go quite a bit for lunch, and I built networks there. I met people. I was a politician for a bit, and I had lots of conversations there, right? And building out my own personal network. And so maybe you can talk about it from either angle in your observations.
Well, I guess, in listening to what you're talking about, I go at it from a totally different direction, but your aim is still the same. You want to have people around you that are on the same path or have got the same vision, or don't have your vision at all, but they've got something really cool to offer. And for me, because I'm a really small business, I get resumes all the time, but they're not really what I'm looking at. You probably have the same thing, but if somebody drops off a resume, thumb, but if I can sit down and talk to somebody and they say, look, I have never cooked a thing, but I just love to wait on customers, or to be that person, or to stay up late at night making bread and stuff like that. And that kind of enthusiasm, I think that's kind of what you're talking about. If somebody comes in and pulls that, I'm happy. I'll sit and talk to them for an hour, because I think that what they're offering me is something that is really helpful, and that I also think that I can help them move along on whatever their path is. So, and again, I think you've got the business end of it much more, so I don't have that at all, but what I really got is a good eye for people that are enthusiastic about doing what they're going to do.
People are your most valuable asset.
Right. And people that work for you are the very best and the very worst of every day.
People are hard sometimes.
They are. But they're always, I find people, even the really difficult customers, employees, whatever, you always get something out of it. And it is remarkable what people bring to the table, good and bad.
I'm really bad at networking. I'm not gonna lie.
Me too.
I'm not good at it. I never was. I'm a really good. I like to shoot the shit. I'm good at that, and that's my network style. Kind of handshake. Let's talk about the day, sort of thing. I've worked with a lot of like great local chefs, and I think networking for me has always been proven through working hard, accomplishing things, doing things correctly, never saying no, always saying yes, because that's the industry that I work in. It's unforgiving, especially when you're really young, because you don't push the line and you don't say no.
Well, and you haven't learned some of those tricks. That
Yeah, exactly. I'm
We
learning
need
them
to
right.
take his class,
Yeah,
you and
exactly. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm not, I'm behind the scenes guy. Like I'm not the face of anything. And
Brett, you have co-founders, right?
yes,
So where did you meet them?
at work. Yeah,
You're building your network.
yeah. I guess you're right. Oh
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
man.
So a lot of times I think we think of formal networking, right? Going to a business after hours and trading business cards. But your network is everybody in this room, right? Your cohorts in your class and everybody else. And then you remember those people and I want to work with that person, or I'm starting a new business and I want to pull them in, right? Or I'm going to connect those dots because they're an amazing musician and they need to meet Todd, or whatever other scenarios that come from that. So let's talk a little bit about co-founders, right? That's really important. How did we come to, Penny, did you start with anybody else?
it's just me.
Oh, stressful.
Yeah, yes and no, but then, nobody tells you what you can't do. You can, kind of set things in motion yourself. Because my business is small, and I'm very, very good at fixing old equipment and that kind of stuff. So I can do that kind of thing. And I just as soon do it my own way. But I've had people that have worked for me for 20, 30 years that continue on. So, I mean, I was fine doing it by myself.
And did you have anybody to rely on, mentors or anybody else to give you some
My mother
guidance?
is a hell of a cook.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I mean, lots of people, because actually one of my fun things that I did when I first started, and I was your guys' age, but I bought a lot of my equipment. It was old and broken down and busted ass, and every time I'd go to these auctions or buy my equipment, I would try to find out who was the business person and why they were going out of business. And almost all of them, again, this was a long time ago, but almost all of them said, yeah, we got into this thing and we had this really cool idea for a wonderful restaurant or a whatever. And so we did this thing and it was great, and we were just sailing along, and we got bigger and we got bigger, and then it all fell to shit. So it wasn't really, it was a great way to learn that you can keep yourself small or keep yourself the size that you like to be. I think a lot of places you get bigger and bigger and then with an eye to sell it. But I didn't really have that in my mind. I also didn't think I'd be doing this for 43 years, but there you go. I think that it's really easy when you get a really good idea to explode it. And then it's either no fun to do it anymore, you're losing money faster than you're making it, or it's not what you really thought. So, I think that for me, staying small was just great because I can still be the only guy and I'm the last word. So I don't really have to put up with anybody else's ideas.
So Galen, how about you? What was your sort of trajectory for taking it all on your own, or did you have co-founders to help that burden, and what was this thought process there?
Yeah, so I have two co-founders, both Paul alumni as well. I think that.
So did you meet them while you were here?
I met them actually in the Atkins investment group at Paul. So I think that the the most important thing when it comes to choosing business partners is trust. Because like I said, unless you're bringing somebody on for an incredibly specific skill set and role that you don't candidly, it's more about their utility. The other side of that is that they're gonna learn everything. So like, there's one co-founder you bring on for utility. There's one co-founder that you bring on for like, I guess, to just be a co-founder and build the business with you. And that person is I would put trust over skill any day of the week. Any day of the week. And it's funny, I'm actually pretty sure there's like a study of like the Navy SEALs on this, where they talk about like if they chose people for a team, they would choose people they trusted way higher than people who were like the most skilled. And like, I think it's really important because you're gonna go through you're gonna go through good times, you're gonna go through bad times, and the ability to like look at each other and trust that the other person has the best intentions in mind is incredibly important, especially in today's day and age. As a lot of you can imagine, there's a lot of backstabbing out there. So like, I just think knowing that the person that you're working with isn't gonna screw you over and is willing to lay down, you know, put their coat on the puddle so you can walk across is incredibly important. With my next business, whatever it is, that's same thing. Very, very important.
Great. Brett, how about you?
So I have two other business partners, and when we opened, we basically took the skeleton of an older restaurant and kind of revitalized it. Our majority business partner, he owned a restaurant and he closed it, and myself and my other business partner, Steven, were employees, and we went to him and we wanted to give it another shot. And so we moved it and we shrunk it down and made it very lean and mean, and turned it into the takeout success that it's been in Dover. But I would agree with everything that you said about trust. It's invaluable. You rely on these other folks to pick you up when you're down and do other aspects of the job that you can't do. Like I said, I am a good schmoozer when I need to be, but I'm a back of house person. I'm a cook, I'm a chef, I'm good with my hands. I'm brutish sometimes, but I can be charming as well. But that's why I have another business partner who is, he's the front of the house expert. He's got all the systems down, and we rely on each other immensely. And then we have our majority partner who was kind of like our mentor. He guided us through the opening and has just basically let us make the decisions. He doesn't really ever override what we do. He trusts the vision of the two junior members, and we just kind of fly by the seat of our pants most of the time, quite frankly.
But can I just say one quick thing? One of the things that I think, and you sort of touched upon, and both of you guys did, I think that what the best skill that I think I have is finding out what people's strong points are, because I've got people that are absolute wizards at numbers, which I totally am not that person. And I've got people that are really good at this and really good at that. And I think finding people's strengths and really playing to those strengths is huge. And whether, it's somebody that is, it doesn't really make any difference. But I think to pinpoint people's strengths and really push them in that direction and have them not waste their time doing things that they're really bad at is huge.
Part of the reason why people are hard and managing people is hard is because you need to rely on them.
It's
right?
true.
Yeah.
It's true.
So you have to trust, and then you have to also be able to trust them to do the job, and so that you can rely on them. Maybe we can talk a little bit about pivots and how we've adjusted over time. Penny, if I read the bio for you, did you start a different business before you started the bakery?
I did.
Yeah, can you tell us about that and and then jumping?
Well, it was a million years ago, but I went to school here for art, and so I had a shop that I made metal goods, spoons, forks, wedding rings, that kind of stuff, gems and that kind of thing. And I did that for about 3 years in Portsmouth. but that was when my rent was $35, and then it went up to $100. I know, you're probably thinking, how did she do it? But I did that for a few years, and then it seemed like a really good idea to get into the food, because Portsmouth has got so many fabulous restaurants, and there weren't places that were doing that. So I thought I'd give it a try, these 43 years ago.
We're very happy you did. Yeah. So, and Brett, do you have any, publicly disclosable pivots that are going on in your life right now?
Yeah, we're moving the restaurant, so that's fun. We're moving about 500 feet up the street in downtown Dover, New Hampshire, to and open a vacant storefront, and we're currently under construction, and we're gonna let people back in the building. Our restaurant right now is about 600 square feet, so we don't have a lot of space for people to come in. But our new space will have dine-in and the ability to serve alcohol. But we're also rebranding at the same time. Like I mentioned about 2 minutes ago, we revitalized an existing business, and when we opened, 3.5 years ago now, we chose a name that was synonymous with the business that we were taking over. And we get a lot of confusion because we're associated in name with another restaurant in the state. And Steve and myself, the junior partners, we have kind of created this little endeavor of burrito madness in our own vein, and we want to take it to a different place. And so we're currently in the rebranding process with the goodwill of our majority owner. He's like, fly, go do your thing.
When can everybody expect to come visit?
Hopefully in mid-June.
Quick.
Yeah, so fortunately it was already an existing restaurant space, so build out, the guts are already there, so we just have to make it ours, yeah. So yeah, by mid-June, and yeah, so all kinds of fun stuff are going on right now.
And so, Galen, Noka's been going on for a little bit now. Has there been any minor pivots or adjustments that you've made sort of after hitting the market and learning, getting a response?
Yeah, I guess there's one minor one that kind of comes to mind. So when we launched the brand, our whole premise was essentially being like a non-carbonated alternative to the hard seltzers, which is essentially a flavored water with bubbles and alcohol. And so our product was essentially that, just without the carbonation. So it was think of like a Propel with alcohol. It's a flavored water product. That was like the baby that spawned like the whole business. But what we realized, I think probably about 2 years in, that has really given us legs and has allowed us to grow considerably, is the fact that we realized we could expand beyond that one thing. And I think that's something that you hear on Shark Tank all the time, you're not a company, you're a product. And I think that's kind of what turned us into a real business. Was we realized that there are a number of traditionally non-carbonated products out there that have been made just carbonated with an alcohol. So iced tea, lemonade, fruit punch. I'm guessing none of you drank carbonated iced tea growing up, or carbonated lemonade. Doesn't really exist. I mean, Orangina kind of, but not really. And so we decided to take those products and then bring them into our portfolio as non-carbonated alternatives to, again, everything else that's out there. It was a pivot. It felt like a big pivot at the time, because you're taking what was the business and saying, all right, we're going to grow, we're going to expand it. But it's really, again, fortune favors the bold. That type of move can really make a business.
Great. And so maybe we can kind of pivot ourselves and shift a little bit to think about, what are some unexpected lessons you learned along the way? Any epiphanies, or, oh my gosh, I don't ever do this again, or I'm sure there's a ton, but is there any highlights that you want to share with the audience here? Anybody?
Everything takes twice as long, costs twice as much as you expect.
Yeah.
That's the biggest lesson of being an entrepreneur. And I literally, it's like, and everyone's like, oh yeah, sure. And it's like, I have a schedule, I'll stick to the schedule, stick to the budget. And then 3 months in, they're like, F this. Like, they're like, yeah, it's gone, toast. So like, I think that's the biggest slap in the face. But I'm sure there's others. I'll let them chime in while I think.
Oh, well, we've all had those. You think you've got like this fabulous recipe or a soup or something that is just such a disaster. It's expensive. It fails. Nobody likes it. You don't like it. I mean, in food, let's face it. I mean, things go bad with food. And yeah. And it's usually something that's really expensive that happens to, wouldn't you say?
Typically, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always the most expensive thing that you can't push.
Right,
and
right,
You're
right.
stuck with it. And you have
Yes,
to
and
figure
there
it
it
out.
is, day after day, laughing at you.
I would also say, trust your gut.
Yes.
If you guys haven't read the book Blink, Malcolm Gladwell, read it now. It's like arguably the most impactful book I've ever read on like the human psyche and like how people make decisions. The reason I say that is because it talks about your gut and trusting your gut. And I think that one thing about being an entrepreneur, especially in spaces like ours where you can have creativity and innovate, there's a lot of people out there with Harvard MBAs and marketing degrees, and they want to tell you how to run everything. They're dead wrong about 99% of it. And I think that when you're an entrepreneur, you start to really trust your intuition and feel where to make decisions. And again, like I'll put it this way: if we made the decisions like, so for example, like we're I think the third largest brand on TikTok right now. If we made the decisions that every other marketing executive would have told us and didn't trust our gut, we would be out of cash and have zero social following. But we were like, we need to trust our gut and go down this path of building organic content. Like that's one example, but like on a daily basis, you have decisions you have to make. And like, if you take the time to trust your gut and know when to not listen to people, you'll make really good decisions. And then you'll get more confident in trusting your gut so you can continue trusting your gut.
That's when you make the big mistakes.
I'll put it this way, you learn more from your mistakes than you do from your successes. But your gut, again, the human brain is an incredible thing, and you start to learn, your subconscious learns, you start to learn from your mistakes and from your successes, and that's how your gut tends to form.
For me, I'd say the thing that I've like learned is that adversity brings innovation. Opening a business and being open basically strictly through pandemic times has lent the business that I own, you know, we leaned heavily into online ordering. Like, you know, we were closed for a month and that's all we worked on while we were closed. And to be a really small business, we have like 8 employees. You know, we came out with an app. We doubled down on online ordering. We embraced, you know, all the delivery methods like DoorDash and stuff like that, but played it to our advantage as much as we could. In those tough times, the innovation just kept coming. We teamed up with a lot of local nonprofits and we're providing meals to many houseless individuals and individuals who needed food and help. And there were programs that started in the wake of all of this adversity that have since gone away. And that's been a little unfortunate because I think the food industry needs innovation at the end of the day. What I've learned working in the industry for like 20 years now is that it's very cyclical, and we're basically back to the same habits we were pre-pandemic, and hence our restaurant is pivoting back to a dine-in facility. But we're creatures of habit now. You know, people are naturally creatures of habit in the food industry. It can be disappointing how quickly we go back to our old ways and not push forward and keep trying to innovate. and keep trying to bring people up and bring ideas up. So yeah, I'm interested to see where it's going to go from here because it's in an interesting spot right now.
So the creatures of habit's an interesting comment. When I speak to students about entrepreneurship and we talk about competition, I often say it's the status quo. Trying to get people to change a habit is incredibly hard, right? And so, Penny, like, what percentage of your lunchtime clientele are probably there once a week at least? What do you think? Speaking of habit,
yeah. I like that habit, though. That's a good habit.
Yeah.
Come in for lunch.
I get the
every
feeling
day.
that you have regulars.
I
as
do.
a huge
I have a lot
portion
of
of
them.
your business, right?
Right, and people that have been around for a long time come back, fortunately. But yeah, no, I think a good percentage of them do. I think that for me, it's hard not to just sit back and think, okay, I've got all my regulars, because I think innovating and trying to find, COVID threw everything into, and it was kind of cool because it made you sort of think, okay, we can't just keep sailing along this way because now people can't walk in the door. It has to be the to-goes. It has to be that kind of stuff. So it was kind of great to be able to sort of mix it up a little bit and think, okay, so what can we do to get to be other people's habits, to get, and I think, talk about a pivot. COVID did that. Did that really hit your business? I would think less so for you.
Not really, no.
People are still drinking, aren't they? Not you
Maybe
guys,
more
of
so.
course.
Yeah.
So sort of along those lines, then, Galen, trying to get people to change from one brand to another is sometimes hard, right? I drink Diet Dr. Pepper, like that's my soda. Why would I want to try a new thing? I know Mountain Dew keeps coming out with new flavors. I don't know how many people want to try those new things. So how did you kind of address that in your business to get people to try a new category?
Yeah, so I'll say this, it's definitely easier when you're providing something that people already want. So like when we first like started, or when I first had the idea, and I reached out to like I think it was like 150 like 21 plus students at like UNH and URI, and I was just like, hey, is this something that you would generally like? Would you consider purchasing it? Yada, yada, yada. The response was like astounding in the sense that like so many people said, I enjoy, like the moral to it was like, I enjoy, or I tolerate seltzers, but I prefer non-carbonated products, so I would buy this if it was available. So when you're providing something that people are already like, they already have purchasing intent for, it's not as difficult. But like it's interesting, I was referencing another data point, like I was watching these TED Talks where it talked about how consumers want a balance of familiarity and novelty. Like if something is too new, they're like, oh, what the hell is that? But if it's like this exact same, to your point, like why would I buy this? So compared to what I'm already buying. So like I think that like that also fared well for us because people drink non-carbonated flavored products, like they drink lemonade, they drink iced tea, so it was more about like the branding and stuff. But I mean, to be honest, like humans are simple. Like if you want somebody to buy a drink, you just have them try it. And so like almost all, like a huge amount of our marketing is just like doing samplings. Okay. Like we've done samplings at, what's it now, Campus Market, I don't know, Market, something, like the new old Sammy's. Okay. And like Total Wines, like just get them to try it. Like I'm guessing like, I don't know, you guys may do that stuff if you have like stuff you want to sample people, if you want them to try it, give their opinions, like how do you get an opinion? Ask for it.
And people love to
They
give
love it.
opinions.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah, I know.
Turns out you can spend a lot of time racking your brain about what people think, or you can just ask them, right?
And they're more than happy to tell you.
Again, you can pay Wharton MBA $1,000 to tell you to sample a product. Like it's common sense. Like
I've seen a lot of money spent
For
doing
you,
just those
free
things.
today.
Right. Yeah.
This little nugget of information.
So I got just a couple more questions, and then I'm going to kind of transition it over and get some Q&A from our students here. So I'm interested if you have any that come top to mind. In your journey, has there been any kind of big surprises? Like about yourself or about your business or about your customers that sort of unexpected that you've come across and thought were interesting?
Well, for me, I have to say my most unexpected thing is that I'm still doing this same job, because I didn't think I was going to be. But, you know, if the fun's still there, then I'm going to keep doing it.
That's a good sign, right?
I would double down on that, because I've been doing a similar job for, I've been a glorified prep cook for 20 years. I'm good with knives and
Dishwashing.
Yep, dishwashing and fixing things and cleaning grease traps and getting nice and dirty. And I still like doing it. And ultimately I just want to, I guess what gives me joy every day is that people walk away from the restaurant that I'm a part owner in, and they're genuinely happy with what they get. And nothing gives me more satisfaction than that, and that's kind of what brings me back. And it's like the realization that I have most days. So that's a nice surprise most of the time.
Awesome. Galen, any surprises along the way?
Yeah, there's really two that come to mind. The first is that, well, actually, no, I just forgot about the first. ADHD, folks. The second was that never underestimate, and this is going to sound really morbid, I apologize, never underestimate how shitty people can be. And I say that because, like, I got into business where, I deal with a lot of people, from distributors to, retailers, like vendors, you name it. And, like, I think that, like, I don't know about you guys, but, like, you guys try to bring the world good. You try to bring the world things that people can eat and bring happiness. And, like, you have to prepare yourself that, like, that's not how everybody else acts. And it's a surprise. It's kind of an unpleasant surprise, because there are a lot of people out there that only care about themselves, don't care about bringing other people happiness, and you have to deal with that as an entrepreneur. So when you find the people that do, keep them close, because I think those are, again, it's like, I mean, listen, there's good with the bad. We've talked about a lot of positive things up here. There's a lot of tough things about being an entrepreneur too, especially in the space. One of those is that there's a lot of people who do not share the same values. I think, what was the first thing I was going to say? Because it was positive. I don't remember.
If you come up with it later, we'd love to hear it. But maybe we can wrap up our sort of formal portion here. Is there anything you want the students to know? Right, you've got some time, you've got some perspective now.
I want to know what you guys are all.
So we definitely want to hear from them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, for me, that's the cool thing, is to hear, like, what you guys. You're much younger than I am, obviously, but like where you want to go and what you want to do, because I think that gives us all some information too.
Okay, we'll get to that in a second then, right? Brett, is there anything you wish you knew? Like, what do you, there's a lot, I think. But like,
my
anything you wanna
self-worth,
kind of,
I wish it was higher when I was younger.
That's very valuable.
Yeah, I value my time a lot more than I used to. I still do break my back in a lot of ways, but I'm doing it for my own purpose now and my own forward trajectory, I suppose, as opposed to doing it for someone else and working a 15 or 16-hour day. And value yourself. You are your most valuable asset, So think highly of yourself. Push the line. I wish I had done it earlier. So.
Never be scared to work hard. But work smart. Don't work dumb. There's a lot of people out there who justify long hours by saying they're working hard, but they're just working dumb.
Okay.
Right.
All right. So let's transition this over a little bit, and raise your hand if you have any questions, and if the question is specific to any particular person, let us know who that is too, and your perspective as well about why you're asking.
So I'm a junior majoring in finance and marketing, and my question specifically has to do with marketing. So you guys had the idea for your business, and you created a product for it. And after creating this food product, I'm curious how you guys went about finding out whether this was a product that people would like. So was it just something that you tried and you're like, oh my god, this is definitely it? Or did you go to family? Did you hit the streets? I'm kind of curious how you discovered and found out that your product was good enough to be sold and people would buy it.
Well, that's a tough question. Well, you're more businessy than.
I can answer that. Yeah, so we did a couple things. Like the first is like proof of concept. So like, is the concept even worth exploring? And we did that through. You can do that through super easy surveying. Like reach out to like 20 people that are in your target demographic. If you want to create a granola bar, go to GNC and like, ask people. The second is proof of product. Once you have the proof of concept, you then move to proof of product. So generally that's coming up with some sort of prototype. Me, I literally took a White Claw, shook out the carbonation and added BO, but that was like literally the very first trial. It actually tasted pretty good, but it was like, it worked. And like, and that was like the very first like iteration. And like, then like you can create prototypes and like whatever it may be. But like, I think the first way is find out who you want to sell something to and ask them if they would be interested in the theory. And then once you have the theory, give them a prototype.
And so, Penny, I mean, you've introduced new food over the years. How do you get people to be interested? Are they just experimental and they're just dive right in?
I put it out there. Samples for sure, but I think that my only advertising, so I'm really not the person to ask, I just put food out there, and if people love it, I make some more of it. And if they don't love it, I don't make it anymore. People are simple. And I mean, I don't have an advertising budget. I know that's hard, but I would need somebody like you, because that's not my thing. But I think for food, if food is good, I mean, obviously people love your stuff, so they'll come back again. Simple.
Yeah, we were working within an existing restaurant when we reopened the restaurant, so we had a proof of concept already that burritos and tacos were gonna go well. We improved upon certain aspects of it by adding menu items that were home runs, and we stood behind it and just put it out there. Come taste our queso. You're never gonna go get another queso.
Well, it sounds like there was, potential food that was expensive and wasn't so good, right? And you figured that out pretty quick because nobody buys it.
Yeah, you make mistakes.
Right away.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else have questions? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Hannah. I'm a fourth year psychology PhD student, and I recently, I guess 6 months or so, started a business with individualized, like personality-based health coaching. And I'm also not in the business world, so I've had to learn a lot of these kind of things as I go along. And so I attend different like marketing seminars and things like that. And one really interesting thing that one of the marketing seminars was discussing was that they would pick certain customers to really discuss their products with. So I think some of you talk about like if they like it, they like it. But diving a little deeper, do you pick a few customers that come back, or repeat people that you really trust, that you really want their feedback about a certain new product? Or I guess also sort of in the beginning, kind of using that proof of concept and product. And also, something that I'm really interested in is like data analysis as well, because that's part of my PhD. But do you use any formal data analysis, or are you just always going with your gut about things, or do you kind of keep track of some of those numbers about who, if people really like what you do and like your products, and kind of keep a tally or a record of that, so you can kind of actually work with maybe some of your investors and things about that? So it's like a loaded question, but yeah.
No, it's a really good question, actually. I don't do any of those things, but I think I should have. And if I were starting all over again, I sure as hell would be sitting in these chairs instead of doing what I did. But I wish I knew more business. I wish I had what you're talking about with marketing and stuff like that, and what you're talking about like keeping any of those. That would have prevented some of the large mistakes I made along the way.
Penny, do you have like reliable customers? Like, all right, if Bruce and Jeff Green like this, it's in, right? Like, do you have like some reliable customers? You just make sure this is you've got to try this. Like, I rely on you.
I do in a sense that it's sort of what you're talking about is that you've got people, like I have a guy that comes in for soup every single solitary day, and so if I have a new soup, I give him a cup and what do you think? And I think that picking your demographic is just that. If I have somebody that comes in and buys cookies every day, I'm certainly not going to give them soup and say, so what do you think? Do you think this is a really good one?
Gotcha.
But again, very unscientific, and I think you've got the business end of thing, but I don't have that.
So Brett, for you had some data, right? Because you had takeout data. You could look at your orders.
Yeah, absolutely. Technology helps. We have a POS system that categorizes everything we sell, from different modifiers to sides of sauces and all of that. And yeah, we work off the data to trim menu items. We've trimmed just for instance, we've made several trims recently to streamline the menu and try to push to not have things sit around for long periods of time. So we've used simple data like that where you go through the numbers, month to month, and you're like, all right, buffalo sauce just really isn't selling like we thought it was going to. So yeah, we take that data, and then we also have an app that we take data from that as well, and yeah, just crunch the numbers. We don't do it all the time, and it's more of like you can follow. If you're paying attention in the restaurant, you know what's selling and what's not, and it's just like anything else. You just have to have a clear mind and just focus on what you're doing.
Yeah, I think to your first question, I think that it's all exactly what she said. It's all about your customer demographic, meaning like even within this one business, you're going to have different demographics. Like again, using Noka, for example, like our lemonades and 5% 100 calorie drinks are very popular with people who are health focused, better for you, want to drink in larger volumes, etc. But if we had like a single much sweeter, higher sugar 8% product, I wouldn't want to serve that to them. They wouldn't know that. So the best advice I ever got was that, or one of the best pieces of advice is that to think of ourselves as a marketing company that happens to sell a beverage. So when I always think about it in terms of like, who do we want to sell this to and where can we meet them, like intersect with them. So again, if we want to sell a product to moms, I mean, we find out where they meet, where we can meet with them, and we go there and talk to them about it. I think on the data side of things, it also like, I know that there's a lot of like back and forth about focus groups and like the need for that stuff. I am personally really biased. I'm biased against them because I think if you ask somebody for critical feedback, they innately are going to be critical. So I found that like a lot of the best feedback we get is when we're just sampling people like at a store or like, sampling at an event. Like that's when we get authentic feedback. People are like, oh, I really like this or I like that. Instead of sitting them down and be like, take a notepad, write down, it tends to be like way more like they try to give more critical feedback. On the data side of things, I mean, I wish that we had like data, like point of sale data and stuff like that, because like we're so limited on what we can get. That being said, I can tell you that like, so we just got into like Walmart and a few other big chains, like they completely make every decision on data. You could have a can of gold. If that doesn't sell, if that doesn't meet the data, they don't give a shit. Like, so it is incredibly important, I think, when you're fine-tuning things, because like the basic concepts of the business probably don't need the data at first, but when you really have like a solid foundation, you're really starting to drill down into things, data is a huge ally.
Great. I think we have time for about one more.
So Brett, yeah, as someone who's trying to launch a company of his own, do you have any other tips of like how to like enter like a well-established market? Because I feel like you definitely probably face challenges starting your businesses, considering that like there already were like beverage companies and there already were like other similar businesses.
Yeah, I mean, again, one of the other great pieces of advice I got for somebody is that, especially when you're starting, you want to be something to somebody before you're everything to everybody. Pick a very, very small, like when I was first starting this, like people were talking about, like I was talking to people and they were like, no, you want to get like way more drilled down. Like you want to be a product for like people in the Hamptons. Like that's an example, like very, very, very niche, and then expand from there. So like an example would be one of those granola bars. I can't remember which, not Cliff Bar. One of those, it got bought for like $4 billion. It literally got started. The guy literally only sold in bodegas. Didn't sell anywhere else. He was a granola bar for bodegas. That was his client base, and he hit it really hard. Then he blew up. But if you try to go everywhere and be everything, you're going to spread yourself thin. You're not going to be effective, and you're going to go bust.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm gonna follow up on that pretty hard. I like, just from experience, like we spread out pretty far in a lot of different directions. We were doing obviously our in-house service, our takeout service, and then we were doing work with, we still are doing work with a lot of nonprofit groups, but we were also working with this business. It's called Three Rivers Farmers Alliance, and they had a home delivery service, and we were doing like frozen meal, like smothered burritos and enchiladas and our queso and like this and that and this and that, but we would have to deliver it out to their, their facility, where then they would deliver it to the masses. And I just burned myself out, just driving everywhere, delivering meals, and not necessarily focusing on growing the core business, which was serving food out of the restaurant itself. And that was definitely a lot on my faults. And Steve, my other business partner, he was like, we're gonna make the money out of the restaurant. And I'm like, man, we can, diversify, go this way, go that way, go this way. And then I'm like, I only have like 6 employees and I gotta do all of it. So it's, I think, honing in on what you want to do, be specific, and making sure it's a hell of a good product ultimately, because the proof's in the pudding. It's like, if it's good, people will come to it. That's ultimately what I think what everyone does up here. We do good things. So
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Great job.